morning, and welcome to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. I am your host, Frank Acom, and we are broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning, and I'm so glad that you joined us this morning because we have a lot to discuss. You remember after the debate, we said if Obama and Pelosi, some of the big name Democrats turn on Joe Biden, that's when you're really signaling trouble. Now you have quote unquote anonymous sources saying that Barack Obama is concerned about the debate performance and concerned about Joe. Nancy Pelosi saying it's fair to ask if this was an episode or a regular thing. Remember when they were calling for Mitch McConnell to step down because he had an episode? But anyway, so troubling signs for the White House, and we have a stack of papers of people turning on Democrats. It's reported that 25 Democrats, congressional Democrats, may come out and ask him to step aside. We'll also talk about what that means. I've had a lot of people ask me, and when you look at the finances, when it comes to campaign finance, it gets a little tricky. So you have Biden's war chest, and where would that money go if he doesn't run? Well, legally, it can't just go to anyone. I had to do some research myself because I didn't know if it could even go to Kamala. But it could. That is the only one that could take that money, that war chest. That would be Kamala Harris. So many are speculating that if, again, it's a major if the president does not run for re-election, then the most likely option would be Kamala. And that makes sense if you've been paying attention to the media, because the media is starting to do kind of fluff pieces on her, puff pieces, giving her kind of these pop culture type interviews. So you're starting to read a little bit of the writing on the wall, especially when you have the media turning on Biden, like the New York Times constantly reporting now about what it's like inside the White House and inside the campaign. And you have others, and not just the New York Times, they're not the most important, but you have others, CNN, questioning if he will go on. So it's very interesting. That's probably what we'll be talking about the most this morning, but I do have a couple of stories before that. First of all, as you are probably aware, tomorrow I will be away on assignment. I will be off on vacation July 4th, of course, and I hope everyone has a fun, safe July 4th. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as well, but I wanted to give you a heads up on that. So tomorrow's broadcast will be a repeat, a great repeat, one that's still very, very much a good idea to wake up early to watch, but also just giving you a heads up. Also, on top of that, a little bit later on in the program, we're going to hear from Big Fox News at 10, Dante Brown. He did a piece yesterday. Nick Langworthy was in the area with a pinning ceremony for Vietnam veterans, and he put together a piece. I was not able to go to the event, so I wanted to play that for you. So if you missed it as well, you would have an idea of what the event was all about. So that's coming up a little bit later on. Now, I am sure you're going to celebrate Independence Day. This is the most expensive Independence Day, thank you to the economy and Bidenomics. I know it almost feels weird talking about political substance at this point. It seems like all we could talk about is Biden's cognitive decline in the media as well, the mainstream media. So it feels weird to say, hey, remember, there's still Israel and Hamas going on. There's still inflation. There's still the open porous border. There's actually a really good piece by the New York Post showing how kind of the loophole in Biden's supposed quote-unquote crackdown is the northern border, something that Congressman Langworthy has talked about in the past as well, just to kind of go full circle on that. But according to Consumer Affairs, the price of 1.33 pounds of ground beef this year is $8.45. That means your hamburger patties are going to be about 50% more expensive this year than they were back in 2019 under the Trump administration. Disposable plates are up over 80% during that time. Ketchup, about 52%. The one that hits closest to home for many, is not just, it's a year-round treat, is Soda Pop, a 12-pack of soda. This year, it will cost you about $9.18 to secure a case of diet soda. This is up from $5.53 in 2021, which was Joe Biden's first Independence Day as president. That is an increase of a whopping 2/3. Why am I starting off with bad news here? But the American Farm Bureau reported that this year will be the most expensive 4th of July barbecues in American history. Well, there's a record. Now, this isn't because people aren't feeling good about the economy. This isn't because, well, you don't understand how good the economy really is. No, these are hard facts. This is the cost. This is why the lies on inflation and saying that, no, things are really rosy. Things are great. Why they don't work. Why people aren't sold on Bidenomics. So there you go. If you haven't purchased your barbecue supplies yet, well, look out. Get the checkbook out. And as I mentioned, there are other news stories on top of Biden. We are going to really dive into that. But there's a few things I want to mention because I've been bringing up the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-American protests for months now. And there's just a couple quick updates on that. Out of North Carolina, at a library, they were holding an anarchist book fair that was hijacked by an anti-Israel mob that ended up beating a cancer-stricken elderly man and two others. A cancer-stricken elderly man and two others were allegedly beaten by an angry anti-Israel mob after they started live streaming an anarchist book fair in North Carolina. Monica Buckley, David Moritz, and Bob Campbell claimed that they were physically attacked by roughly 24 people after sitting in on a strategic lessons for the Palestinian resistance seminar at the West Asheville Public Library. The trio alleged the crowd suddenly turned on them when an attendee noticed the talk, organized by another Carolina anarchist book fair, was being filmed and streamed on social media. Apparently, they don't want their tactics or what they are saying to be known. Footage posted online shows the moment those in the audience started surrounding the group in an apparent bid to block them from filming after someone accused them of being, you guessed it, Zionist. Buckley said, "I was just sitting there recording the people who were surrounding us, and a woman grabbed the phone and started running towards the door. I jumped on her to get my phone back." Now, by the way, Buckley, it is noted here, is Jewish. "There was a swarm of dozens of people that attacked me, and then Bob and Dave came to try to help me, and then they were swarmed and attacked also. They were hitting me, punching my wrists, stomping on my ankles. Somebody choked me with something." Campbell, an 80-year-old Navy veteran who has cancer, said someone pushed him to the floor when he tried to step in. "I went behind her, and then he grabbed me from the back and pushed me down on the floor. So that's when I told him, I said, I got cancer, I'm 80. You don't have to do so much." But he wouldn't stop. The media not really reporting as thoroughly as they should on these anti-Semitic mobs and the violence. They want to pretend just like the Antifa protest of old. They want to pretend they're peaceful protests. We also learn at Columbia, where you could argue this started, where the encampment started anyway. There's new texts. If you didn't realize how bad the faculty was, because many of the faculty participating in this, new texts show that Columbia deans mocked Jewish students over anti-Semitism concerns. That seems to track. That seems about par for the course, doesn't it? We've seen this no love lost for their Jewish students. They have had no problem from the beginning protecting the violent anti-Semitic protesters at the expense of the Jewish community on their college campuses. So this really doesn't come as a surprise, but here it is in the open. They accused Jewish students, this again, Columbia University deans, accused Jewish students of asserting privilege. So they even have to use woke words when they're being disrespectful to a minority group. And they mocked them for needing a place to huddle to avoid anti-Semitism and harassment on campus. Which, think about that. There is clear anti-Semitic intimidation on Jewish students. And the supposed grown-ups in charge are mocking the students that are being harassed and bullied as having privilege and acting as if they're scaredy cats for needing to huddle to avoid this anti-Semitism. Associate Deans Joseph Soret, Susan Chang Kim, Matthew Potasnik, and Kristen Crom exchanged the dismissive and derisive texts while seated in the audience of a May 31st alumni event about Jewish life on campus. Laying the case to expand physical space. They will have their own dorm soon, Pasnick complained. Which, one dean responded, comes from such a place of privilege. Hard to hear the woe is me. We need to huddle at the craft center? Huh? Trying to be open-minded to understand, but the doors are closing. All because these students who pay good money to attend Columbia University, upwards of $100,000, all because they, I guess, have the audacity to believe that they should be safe and protected and not intimidated, not being threatened with violence. Crom said, amazing what money can do. Kind of an anti-Semitic trope there as well. If only every identity community had these resources and support. Wow. Now, in the past, Columbia has featured multicultural graduation celebrations for Black, Asian, Native American, LGBTQ+, and Latinx students, but not Jewish students. Keep that in mind. So those are just some of the texts, but that goes to show you that the rot starts right at the head, at the deans. So it should come as no surprise that this anti-Semitism has reared its ugly head, and these students have become anti-Semitic because of what they're learning. You know, it's what I learned from you. You know, that old PSA. They learned it from their teachers, from their deans. Also, a couple quick things. Two more really quick things on that. And then when we come back, oh, wow, look at these texts coming in. Thank you. We have some comments coming in. We're just getting started. Yes, we are going to talk about Biden. We're going to talk about Obama seemingly turning on Biden. We're going to talk about Pelosi questioning Biden. It is getting hairy. Also, have you noticed that the long knives are back out again for RFK Jr.? We'll try to dissect that and pick our brains of why that would be. But yes, we will not be in tomorrow, so we got to get our fill today. Get those comments in. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. And we are back, just reading all these great comments coming in from the viewers. If you're new to the program, you can text at that number on the bottom of the screen or leave a voicemail. First up, if they're asking if it's an episode or a regular thing, then they're not watching him ever. And that's in reference to Nancy Pelosi asking, well, of course we have a right to know if it's an episode. They've been watching. They know that those in the media and those in Washington have been lying to us for 3.5 years. And now they're trying to downplay it as if they were just as surprised as you were. Continuing lockdowns, raising the minimum wage so soon around the time of COVID, shutting down fuel production, telling everyone they didn't need to pay rent, mandatory vaccinations, the flooding of illegals across the border, and countless other things messed up the country. And the whole work ethic enforced people to be more dependent on government. Does anybody honestly want more of Joe? Meaning Joe Biden, of course. Next up, I'm afraid we'll see more protests run amok as the Democrats have nothing but these protests designed to instill chaos in our society. And boy, there is a lot of chaos. As we even saw, weirdly enough, when the left turns on the left, we saw the anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, anti-American protests disrupting a pride parade. Sometimes you just have to sit back and watch. Now, this is why, and I said if we had one more, but this is, how do I want to word this? This is about the pro-Hamas protests, but it's also very intriguing because of what else it means. Former and disgraced Governor Andrew Cuomo has released a TV ad. Why did I say that's a word? A TV ad blasting campus protesters backing Hamas. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, who founded a pro-Israel nonprofit last year, as he considered it a political comeback, released the group's first television ad Tuesday. 60 seconds that depicts some pro-Palestinian protesters as Hamas supporters. Ooh, how do you like how the media twisted that one? That depicts some pro-Palestinian protesters as Hamas supporters, suggesting that they aren't. When we have seen In actuality, protesters carrying such signs as Long Live October 7th, carrying banners supporting Hamas. Do you really know who they're protesting for? Asks the unseen narrator of the ad, which describes Hamas's kidnappings, killings, and rapes in southern Israel during this October 7th attack. Cuomo does not appear in the ad, which also highlights Hamas's militants pledging to kill Jews. If you stand with Hamas, you stand with terror, the ad concludes. Just something to keep in mind. Yes, he does not appear in the ad. And a good position to take, too, by the way. But intriguing. He formed that group in maybe hopes of a political comeback, but maybe to get ahead of the game. Governor Hochul, in case you were wondering, has said she'll be running for another term as New York governor in 2026. 2026, it may be a long way off. I'm running. I'm preparing for that race, Hochul said. We communicate regularly with Lieutenant Governor Delgado. He's doing a phenomenal job traveling the state, promoting some of his signature initiatives, so I'm very happy with what we're doing now. Seems kind of early. So, Governor Hochul, maybe in reference to Cuomo making more public appearances, having these TV ads, etc., maybe finding the need to get out there and say, hey, no, I'm still here. But we don't know what Cuomo's going to run for. One last thing, kind of in tying it all in. Biden and Netanyahu are expected to meet in Washington during Israel's prime minister's July visit. That's on July 24th. Just an update. All right, so let's talk about Biden, shall we? There are media reports that upwards of 25 Democrats could come out today demanding that Biden step down from his campaign. That is, this week. It is interesting. I was talking to some people. I know I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. It seems like when it comes to policy of the Biden administration, the open porous borders, the inflation, the numbers I brought to you about this being the most expensive Independence Day barbecue in America's history, really just issues. There's no talking about that. It's everything about an issue that we've known about for 3.5 years, which is the decline in Joe Biden. Now, 1 in 3 Democrats think that Biden should quit the race. Now, I don't think this is as damning of a poll as the media may present. Because, okay, 1 in 3 Democrats think that Biden should quit the race. But those 1 in 3, when the smoke clears, if Biden's still there in November, will be voting for Joe Biden. It's not as if they're going to switch to Trump. 1 in 3 Democrats think U.S. President Joe Biden should end his re-election bid following last week's debate against Republican Donald Trump. But no prominent elected Democrat does any better than Biden in a hypothetical matchup against Trump, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. Oh, that's interesting. The 2-day poll found that both Trump and Biden maintain the support of 40% of registered voters, suggesting that Biden has not lost ground since the debate. Now, there's other polls. Yes, you've probably seen CBS polls and others that are pretty hurtful to Biden and his chances. Now, and I'm going to get to a little bit later on that if he is replaced, why it's most likely Harris. But among the names of top Democrats put up to respondents, only Michelle Obama outperformed Biden and led Trump 50% to 39% in a hypothetical matchup. Some 32% of Democrats in the poll said Biden should give up his re-election bid following a debate in which he stammered, and you know all that. Shouldn't I don't know, if you're calling for him not to run for re-election and you think that was such a troubling debate, is there also something to be said about maybe asking him to step aside and put Kamala in as president? Meaning, I don't want to see Kamala as president, but I'm saying, if he's not healthy enough to run for re-election, is he healthy enough to finish out his term? And if he were to step aside and put Harris in there, it would give her a little bit of the power of the incumbency. Biden did say, Biden's going to give an interview, and everybody said, oh, wow, this could be interesting. With George Stephanopoulos, of course, a former Clinton advisor. So no surprise that he got the scoop. And I think most of us are saying, well, this will be interesting. When should we tune in? Well, it doesn't matter because it's not live. I believe they tape it, tomorrow maybe? And it airs on... Oh, no, it tapes on Friday, I think, and airs on Sunday. So I think it would have a lot more power if it were a live interview. And does anybody really believe that George Stephanopoulos and others behind the scenes wouldn't make sure that Biden looks his absolute best? Because let's face it, though CNN did a good job overall in the debate, there was times when they tried to cut away from Biden. Sorry, Mr. President, when he was really losing his train of thought, or when the split screen looked very bad, cutting to just Trump. So they tried, but there was no saving that, as we know. So what kind of editing capabilities will George Stephanopoulos be involved in? So not as impressive, not being a live interview. So we're going to talk a lot more about Biden. Just getting warmed up. But I do got to take a break. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, please stay with us. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. You're watching Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. As I mentioned, tomorrow we will not be in. We'll be away on assignment. That assignment is celebrating this amazing country, the greatest country in the world, and our Independence Day, just like you. I know you'll be celebrating. So keep that in mind. I will not be live tomorrow, but on Friday, we'll be back at it with plenty more to talk about. And I want to highlight this just quickly before we get back into Biden. On Monday, I'm really excited about this. For country music fans out there, you should know this name, more classic country. If you're a fan of the Grand Ole Opry, T. Graham Brown is going to be joining us on Monday. He's got a new album out called From Memphis to Muscle Shoals, and it's available August 2nd. Listen to some of these guests that he has. It's a duet album. And the set list, that's track list, but because it's not a live show. Listen to these songs before I tell you some of the special guests. I'll tell you right along with it. It Tears Me Up, originally done by Percy Sledge, of course. Take Me to the River. He does that with Winona. You Better Move On, which is a great Arthur Alexander song. If you're not familiar with Arthur Alexander, you might remember Anna. And You Better Move On was the first hit for Fame Studios and Muscle Shoals. He does that with the great Little Anthony of Little Anthony and the Imperials. He covers Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, Soul Man, I'm Your Puppet, Walking the Dog, the Rufus Thomas song. He does that with Sammy Hagar, of all people. Who's Making Love? He does that with Sam Moore from Sam and Dave, the legendary Sam and Dave. So you've got country stars, you've got rock stars, you've got, I don't know what you call it, early rock stars and oldies type music. Covers When a Man Loves a Woman, Slip Away, Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Yeah, the amazing Otis Redding song. He does that with Randy Houser. Mustang Sally with Delbert McClinton. The Dark End of the Street with Tanya Tucker. And Knock on Wood with Eddie Floyd, the original person who did knock on wood. Anyway, I know I sometimes get into the weeds with music, but you're going to love this interview. That is on Monday. I thought I'd save it, a special treat for after the weekend. Oh, a lot of waves come in. Okay. Oh, and a little bit later on in the program, Dante Brown from Big Fox News at 10. I have his news package from last night, in case you missed it, about the Vietnam veteran pinning by Congressman Nick Langworthy. I'm not sure if that's the right way to word it, but we'll learn all about it in the next hour. Biden says he nearly fell asleep at the debate, and he blames all that foreign travel, despite having a week off the rest. That's a lot of time to play catch up. He claimed that the foreign travel left him so plumb tuckered out, that he nearly fell asleep, even though he had, this is during the debate, even though he had 13 days to recover from the most recent trip abroad. That's when we also learn, and the New York Times is really coming after Biden with these behind the scenes or behind the White House, what people are saying, that Biden during debate prep, so had a week off for debate prep, they would start at 11 a.m. and then he would take a nap a few hours later. So this is what Biden told Democrat donors. I decided to travel around the world a couple of times shortly before the debate. It wasn't very smart to be traveling around the world a couple times. I didn't listen to my staff, and then I almost fell asleep on stage. So he's had a cold. It was foreign travel. He almost fell asleep on stage. Biden blamed foreign travel despite making just 2 brief recent foreign trips, traveling on June 5th through the 9th to France, for the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and June 12th through the 14th for the G7 summit. And then we had reports yesterday as well that many leaders at the G7 summit were very concerned by Biden's decline. And I'm not going to go through the rest of his schedule, but according to the New York Times, debate prep sessions never started before 11 a.m., and Mr. Biden was given time for an afternoon nap each day. Yesterday, of course, as you are well aware by now, Lloyd Doggett, representative from Texas, was the first sitting member of Congress from Biden's own party to call for him to step aside, saying that he should go the way of, or with the example, not go the way of, but use the example of Lyndon B. Johnson, who did not seek re-election in 1968. The list goes on who else joined that call for him to step aside. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But according to the New York Times, in weeks and months before Biden's politically devastating performance on the debate stage in Atlanta, several current and former officials and others who encountered him behind closed doors noticed that he increasingly appeared confused or listless, or would lose the thread of the conversation, according to the New York Times. Now, I find this really interesting with the New York Times. I know I keep mentioning them. I don't think they're as powerful as they think they are. But they said, this goes to show you the loyalty of some Democrats, that at the end of the day, and keep this in mind when they say, 1 in 3 Democrats want Biden to step aside. Well, those 1 in 3 will still, at the end of the day, vote for Biden if he's on the ticket. Because the New York Times hates Trump so much, they admitted so, that they do not have to fairly report if it means keeping Trump out of there. They hate him so much that they're willing to throw Biden under the bus. They're Joe Biden, their president, under the bus, because they even read the writing on the wall that Trump could beat him. So never mind the loyalty to the party, never mind the loyalty to a man who perhaps biggest part of his legacy is the fact that he defeated Trump. It's, what have you done for me lately? Move aside. There's no loyalty there. Our only loyalty at the New York Times is our loyalty to defeat Donald J. Trump. The Times reported Mr. Biden was drained enough from the back-to-back trips to Europe that his team cut his planned debate preparation by 2 days so he could rest at his house in Delaware. The preparation, which took place over 6 days, never started before 11 a.m., and Mr. Biden was given time for an afternoon nap each day. This comes after Carl Bernstein of Woodward and Bernstein fame, that he revealed that several people very close to Biden, and this was on CNN on Monday, because CNN's coming out with the long knives too. CNN has turned essentially on Biden. Biden has been, that those close to Biden have been concerned about his cognitive decline for more than a year. See, that's how the media tries to save face. For more than a year, this has been a 3.5-year thing. And guess what? When you brought it up from the early days, you were a conspiracy theorist. You were really a horrible person. How dare you question the president of the United States' mental health and what that could mean for our safety as a country? And don't you care about this country? Those type of things. Now the media is saying, well, it turns out he is really bad. They knew all along. They lied to the American people. They've been lying all along, especially the White House. And of course, when the White House lies, the media then picks it up and pushes the talking points that they want to use, such as cheap fakes. Not hearing that as much anymore, are you? After the debate, I don't think we've heard the term cheap fake since Thursday of last week. It is hard to believe that it hasn't even been a week yet, and what that coverage has been like. We have so much more on this. We are really just getting started, but we also are moving very, very quickly. So stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox, stay with us. And we are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Here's a comment from a viewer that explains how he got the cold, meaning Joe Biden. The first excuse right out of the gate was, well, he had a cold. I often get ill after flying due to air cabin quality. Poor guy. Yeah, that's a very good point. Also, I have a feeling, and I see the rolling eyes emoji. I know there's sarcasm there. I have a feeling their air cabin quality isn't the same on Air Force One as the red eyes that we're flying. Could be. I don't know. Maybe that's why he has a cold. Who am I to say? White House staffers are being reportedly scared. I can't say the next word. How can I spin it? I think you know. Scared. Anyway, of erratic Biden tiptoeing around isolated president during briefings. He's not a pleasant person to be around. It's like you can't include that. That will set him off. Or put that in. He likes that, a senior administration official told Politico. It's a Rorschach test, not a briefing, because he is not a pleasant person to be around when he's being briefed. It's very difficult, and people are scared blankless of him. Oh, that one actually kind of works, doesn't it? Blankless of him. And man, a lot of cussing in today's news. Freaking the blank out at the White House, according to Axios. So many liberal publications have turned on the president. Officials on President Biden's White House and campaign staff say they're feeling rage, sadness, frustration, and resolve over his debate performance. Again, who let him? Is this? I don't want to sound conspiratorial, but they have been around the president all this time. They know what he was like during debate prep. They know what he's like behind closed doors. Who let him? And maybe this is why there's so much call for his top aides to be booted. Who made the call to let him go forward with the debate? It was a very easy out. All he had to say is that Trump, something Trump said, he can't give a platform and can't debate that man. It's beneath the office, something like that. Or when the conviction came out of the felonies, he could have said, no, we're not going to debate. So I'm still very confused by that. Is it somebody behind the scenes that wants to put a new puppet in there? Somebody else that may go, I don't know if you could say go even further left. It's confusing. I didn't mean to get on that tangent, but Axios, as I mentioned, Obama, remember, it's anonymous sources saying behind the scenes, Obama said the debate performance really hurt Biden. That's getting out there for a reason. That has been leaked for an obvious reason, and you're hearing more and more leaks from the White House in general. That's when the dominoes start to fall. And we had mentioned right after the debate, the next day, on Friday, the first show after the debate, that if Obama and Pelosi and those type of names start turning on him, that's signaling the end. So do you believe, here's our question for the morning, do you believe that Biden will be on the ticket in November? This is very fluid, because if you recall yesterday, they were talking about giving him the nomination early to dispel any questions, and then you start to see the anonymous sources about Obama, and then Pelosi saying, yes, it's fair to ask a question if it's an episode or if it's a regular thing. I don't know. This is getting interesting. So there's a lot of rage behind the scenes. What do you expect? They knew what Biden was like. It's the first topic of every conversation, one White House official said. Senior leadership has given us nothing. To act like it's business as usual is delusional. And that's what they started as. They've tried to. Their hand has been forced a little bit to talk about it. I do not envy the press secretary, who was asked point blank. Jean-Pierre was asked point blank if the president has dementia. The answer, of course, being no, was the answer she gave. Another official put it more bluntly. Everyone is freaking the blank out. The uncertainty after Thursday is palpable, and anxiety is only increasing, a third White House official told Axios. People are looking for leadership and direction that they were told to trust and hoped was there, but aren't yet feeling in what is now clearly a defining moment for this presidency. It's kind of Ruth Bader Ginsburg on steroids, meaning when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, of course, still memorialized, and you had people, if you recall, it was kind of a common thing on social media for someone to cry into the camera. I can't believe this happened. But then when the kind of political pundits came out and said, you do realize that it's going to cost a Supreme Court justice and go with the conservatives, then you started seeing some rumblings behind the scenes where they weren't so rosy on Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That's what we're seeing here. To Democrats, at the end of the day, Biden's legacy is that he defeated Trump in 2020. That's all that matters. So if he blows it in 2024, there goes his legacy. So now you're seeing a real concern, because that debate was, as far as I'm aware, the worst debate performance in presidential history. I mean, I guess some of them weren't, we'll say televised, because that's the only ones we could see. And really one of the most earth-shaking political moments that I think I've ever witnessed, that something could change that quickly. That, if you recall, the Thursday before the debate, before we could watch the debate, I had said on the program that don't expect some earthquake where Biden's just going to come out mumbling, because he'll be prepared. But that's how bad it's become. So I have no problem admitting that I was wrong there. That's how shocking it was to, I think, the world. Not shocking that he was that way, but shocking that we didn't get a State of the Union kind of second wind for whatever reason. So this is all very, very fascinating. The White House is freaking out. On Friday, the day after Biden's debate against Trump, many senior White House officials addressed the president's lackluster performance with staffers. The lack of answers from senior aides has continued this week, leading to growing anger and resentment among many inside the Biden camp. Part of Biden's team sees the debate as just one bad night that will blow over, and points out that many of the president's critics previously have counted him out when he faced challenges. Yeah, that's a talking point that don't ever lose faith in Joe. He always makes a comeback, and perhaps that's the case. But here's one I don't know if he can come back from. But if he does, there's going to be some awkward Democrats out there campaigning for him who have now kind of disavowed him, that will have to still, at the end of the day, because they're not going to support Trump, or they're not going to in any way hope that Trump wins it. So at the end of the day, they are going to have to kind of eat crow and come back into the camp. So that'll be interesting. But that's coming from Axios. And the same with the media, not just for people in Washington. Same for the media. They'll have to come back and go, oh, never mind. It turns out he was fine. Interesting. Let's take a short break. Reading some more comments when we come back. This is Frankly Speaking. And we are back with Frankly Speaking. A question from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Good morning. I think that Democrats hate President Trump so much because his policies affect their pocketbooks. What do you think? Am I wrong, or is there a different reason? Well, there's many reasons. I guess, how do you mean they affect their pocketbooks? In like the form of corruption in that way, perhaps? Some of the policies that Trump puts through definitely affect the more shady aspects of their pocketbooks. I think there's so many different levels. You've got the draining of the swamp idea. You've got Trump actually campaigning for the forgotten men and women who are working hard, not the elitist crowd as Democrats have courted for so many years. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I don't have one answer as to why they hate President Trump. I think it would matter whoever you asked. I think you might get somewhat of a different answer, but it's really about them not having the power. They want so many people dependent, meaning the Democrats, on the government, and that's not what Trump was pushing. So there's a lot of moving pieces there, but that would be one of the reasons why they hate Trump. Also, they hate the outsider idea. Washington's supposed to be run by Washington. It's supposed to be done the way we do things here in Washington. And that's just not Trump. They also don't like that as much as they screamed about how bad he was going to be, and they hate the fact that he was successful. You know, it's like that thing where you're so confident something is going to happen. You're stupid. This is the way it's going to be. And then you're proven wrong. That's always that's always a tough pill to swallow. So there's many moving pieces, but thank you. Keep those messages coming in. The White House fends off tough questions about Biden's mental fitness, according to CNN. The White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, said, first of all, I want to say we understand the concerns. We get it. The president did not have a great night. We're not taking away from what the American people saw. Now, the White House preempted the first questions from reporters by announcing Biden will appear in two high-profile events over the next week. An interview with ABC's George Stephanopoulos that will air in part on Friday, and a solo news conference during the NATO summit in Washington next week. Now, keep in mind that the interview is not live. I think that's very telling in and of itself. So that'll be on Friday. I was thinking, I have the specifics on that, so I don't know why I keep guessing on what they was going to record. But she was also asked, Jean-Pierre was asked point blank if Biden suffers from dementia. Does President Biden, at 81 years old, have Alzheimer's, any form of dementia or degenerative illness that causes these sort of lapses? and it's a yes or a no question. The media is so forward. And it's a yes or no question, as if they're in a Senate hearing. Okay. Jean-Pierre said, are you ready for it? It's a no. And I hope you're asking the other guy the same exact question. That's going to be the spin that the White House uses and the campaign uses a lot. Because Nancy Pelosi started with that. The one with actual dementia is Trump. So if they do have to spin it, that's the way they're going to go with it. But again, I asked the question to everyone out there. Do you believe, and I asked it yesterday, but this is one of those stories that a lot changes in just a few hours. Do you believe at the end of the day, Joe Biden will be on the ticket come November? So Joe Biden has his first television interview. It will air with George Stephanopoulos on Friday at 6:30 p.m. on World News Tonight with David Muir. The extended interview will air on Sunday on This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Now, it does not say when. I knew I got rid of the wrong one. I had two articles on this. I can't remember what day he records it, but it is not a live interview. I think that's really important to know. I don't know if that dispels a lot of concern if it can be edited. Biden's post-debate crisis is now evolving into a genuine threat to his re-election bid, says Stephen Collinson, again from CNN. President Joe Biden needs to do far more to quell the panic over his terrible performance, and he's got to do it fast. After Texas Representative Lloyd Doggett on Tuesday became the first Democratic lawmaker to break ranks and demand Biden step aside, top party figures are now asking for more openness and details on the president's health. Well, that's nice that you're concerned now. What about all the concern that conservatives have raised for years now? Not an issue. Not an issue. Now it does, because it affects their chances in taking back the White House, or taking the White House, I should say. Every effort the president and his White House and campaign teams make to fix the problem ends up exasperating it. Biden, for instance, on Tuesday evening joked to donors that he almost fell asleep on stage. It was an odd way to parry claims that he is no longer fit for the demanding duties of his office. Again, this is from Stephen Collinson at CNN. The fallout from the debate has created another extraordinary twist in a stunning campaign featuring two presidents, one who is a convicted felon and the other who is already the oldest to hold the job in history. The debate crystallized many fears of Democrats about Biden's prospects and played into months of claims by Trump that his rival is weak and mentally diminished. Played into months of claims. So even in this case, they just can't admit that Trump was right and that many of us were right, that there was a real cognitive decline from the president. I'm not going to go through all of what Stephen Collinson has to say because I got to take our last break. But a new effort to calm public concern, Biden will grant that interview to George Stephanopoulos. And you also meet with Democrat governors today in Washington. Governor Hochul's going to be there. I saw that on Empire Report this morning. He'll meet with them both in person and virtually, following demands for direct contact that underscore the fact that many Democrats believe Biden's inner circle has been remote and unresponsive to their concerns over periods of months. One of those governors, Kentucky's Andy Beshear, said in a remarkably candid interview on CNN that Biden's debate was rough and that whatever the polls say, it will damage his campaign. Joe Biden is our nominee, and ultimately that decision on continuing or not will fall on him and his family. But I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the president to talk to the American people a little bit more about his health or that debate performance. Isn't it a little frustrating? If you want to go back to it, just think back to the early days of Trump's presidency, where the media demanded, and there's almost this riotous atmosphere from the media, that Trump take a cognitive test. We know something's wrong. We got to. So finally, he does. He says, okay, passes with flying colors. Then the media, by the way, just as a side note, was very upset that the president of the United States of America did not have some type of cognitive decline. Just to show you their bias. Never mind the threat that puts our country into. They were upset. If he were to have cognitive decline, they were upset. But where have those demands been? If they wanted to be fair and impartial, shouldn't they have called for the same test that they demanded of Trump early on in his presidency? I mean, that should only be fair. And if they would have, this may not have been a concern. They may not be going through what they're going through now, trying to convince him not to run. Running late. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. And we are back. Just reading all these comments coming in from viewers. First up, by the way, we're broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. The election is 4 months away, so I can't imagine Biden not being on the ballot unless a very popular young influencer, knowledgeable about politics or anything else not required, makes an appearance. So sort of a celebrity, that could be. That's why I think you see so many polls, and kind of in a different way, I know, but Michelle Obama being the nominee because she's so popular. But again, what to your point about 4 months away, and you've got to think about the campaign cash. Because legally, Kamala Harris is the only one that could get that money. And I wasn't even sure at first that she could. But I understand now because her name is featured on that paperwork. She's the only one that could, for lack of a better word, inherit that money. Next up. Oh my goodness, we got so many comments coming in. And we're just about done with this hour. I get so tired of hearing that the Democrats are in panic mode due to Biden's performance at the debate. The Dems are many things: liars, fearmongers, dishonest, disingenuous, corrupt, but they aren't stupid. All the Dems know the score. All the Dems know the score and have been playing the long game for many years. They always plan on changing Biden out with another useful idiot. The thing they never expected was that a billionaire who didn't need the money wanted to be the president and threatened to drain the swamp, effectively disenfranchising them from the American cash cow. When Trump got elected, they mostly came out of the box with their effort to fundamentally change America and make it a one-party country because they realized that most of Americans didn't agree with their agenda. Very good point, Ken. Thank you very much. And our last comment of the hour, will Joe Biden be on the ticket? Yes. I think their ego, money, and the bragging momentum that they've invested in him will hold. Otherwise, face the chance of humiliation. Yeah, that's the one thing is why I'm surprised so many people, and specifically in the media, are turning on him, because they're gonna it's gonna be awkward from the walk it back. Now, I just say awkward. They don't have any problem being hypocrites or anything like that, so it's not gonna bother them that much to lie to you. Say, oh, never mind. It turns out he was 100% healthy. They don't really have any problem doing that. It's just the awkward nature of it. But we are out of time for this hour. Unbelievable. Thanks for joining us. We've got 1 hour left together. Stay right there. This is Frankly Speaking on WYDC TV. Big Fox will be right back. And we are back with hour number 2 of Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Market Street in Corning. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Frank Acom. We've been talking about Joe Biden nearly the whole morning. Coming up a little bit later on, we are going to hear from our friend from Big Fox News at 10, Dante Brown. He was at a ceremony with Congressman Nick Langworthy yesterday, and I thought I'd bring that to you. That's a little bit later on the program. Let's jump right back in because there's so much to talk about. We didn't even mention, and I'm sure you're aware by now of yesterday's breaking story, that the sentencing in the Trump trial has been delayed because of the Supreme Court's immunity decision. So I think the day, off the top of my head, I think it's September 18th that we'll now know, which that will be interesting because it'll depend if Biden's still in there and what the polls show, what Judge McCann ultimately decides, and how much he can help the Biden campaign. But let's continue. Former Republicans were ready to embrace Biden to beat Trump, and then came the debate. This coming from CNN. What a hokey. It's just like we heard that Nikki Haley was the only way we could win, and, you know, typical. They interviewed two quote-unquote former Republicans that were supporting Biden, but can no longer. So that's another shot at Biden. Make no mistake. Now, reporters at Reuters, Axios, and New York Times have been talking about donor conversations with the Biden campaign. Some worry that their money is now going down the drain. The donors' fears seem to underscore their deep doubts about Biden's political viability. The Biden campaign's National Finance Committee held calls with donors in recent days. 4 donors on a Monday call told Axios, quote, "It was a damage control call. I don't know what the pathway forward is. I think they are trying to figure that out too." We all saw what we saw. The campaign fielded numerous pointed questions about Biden's ability to make it to November. One asked, can the president make it through a campaign and another term? Some of us on that call have privately discussed if we should put our money somewhere else. The past few days have been very disappointing. Some even asking if they get a refund. Now, the Biden campaign is suggesting that the media has spent a ton of time blowing this out of proportion. This is just like inflation, though. They tell us, never mind what you saw on that debate. Never mind that. Everything is okay. Never mind what your bills look like and when you go to the grocery store. Inflation's not an issue. The economy's fine. It's always, they really don't have a lot of faith in you. They don't really believe, they believe you're the rubes. You're the bitter clingers. You're not smart enough to understand how smart they are. You're just a deplorable. So Lloyd Doggett was a big story yesterday, him being the first Democrat from Congress to call for Biden's withdrawal from the 2024 race. That's when the dam kind of opened. And that's another one from CNN, Axios, and New York Times, left-wing outlets, really coming after Joe Biden. As Biden digs in, some top Democrats want him out of the race this week. They referenced Lloyd Doggett. Now, Biden is expected to meet today with Democrat governors and congressional leaders. The announcement came after CNN reported that some governors expressed concerns about the president's debate performance. CNN talked with more than 24 current and former Democratic officials, as well as donors and longtime Biden allies, all of whom spoke on condition of anonymity to avoid alienating Biden. Many of these people say they are already made up their minds that the president should quit his campaign, a decision some of them think he needs to announce as early as this week. Well, I mean, if he's going to do it, every day is another big concern. I think 125 days away or 124 days away. Yeah, they're going to have to make this decision sooner rather than later. But every signal from Biden and his family is that he's in it to win it. And the talking point has become, for those who defend him, never count him out. You can never count out a Biden. Now it is being reported 25 House Democrats are reportedly preparing to call for Biden to end his reelection effort. Now the dam has been broken by Doggett. At least 25 House Democrats are preparing to call for the president to end his reelection bid. Centrist House Democrats in competitive districts, the lawmakers most at risk of losing their seats in November, were so alarmed by Biden's appearance that they're considering writing a letter to Biden. Now, when you start seeing that, I know a lot of people are comparing this to Nixon when, they came in and told him he no longer had the confidence that he was going to be impeached. I guess it's like that. And now, everybody that does this, it is another major news story. Some will be doing it for their own jobs, for their own popularity. Others are doing it because they're actually concerned about the president. But every time this comes out, the worse it gets for Biden. That's why they're in full panic mode, that they are concerned in the White House, or as the one Axios piece said, rage, anger. A second House Democrat told the outlet, it looks like the dam has broken. The lawmakers have been peppered with questions about Biden by constituents since returning home to their district. The report comes after Representative Lloyd Doggett became the first House Democrat. Representative Jared Golden, from Maine, also on Tuesday expressed that he had no confidence in Biden's ability to beat Trump, as did Representative Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, who said, quote, the truth I think is that Biden is going to lose to Trump. Uh-oh. I know that's difficult, but I think the damage has been done by that debate, she added. It will be tough to come back from that, as many have said. But I do think, and if you're just joining us, I know I've said this a few times, we had predicted on Friday, not predicted, it's not the right word. We had said on Friday after the debate that if Biden loses the support of Barack Obama or Nancy Pelosi, that's when he is in real trouble. And thus far, that has not been an issue until yesterday. Now, again, this is coming from anonymous sources, so there could be someone nefarious behind this. I don't believe that to be the case. I believe what we see here is people that want Biden out such as Obama, such as a Pelosi, behind the scenes saying, hey, on anonymity, we want to keep this anonymous, but that Obama's not very happy. Former President Barack Obama has confided in his allies, who then reported it. I mean, Obama can't come right out and say he's got to step down, in my opinion. He's got to do it behind allies leaking it to the press. And have you noticed there's a lot of leaks coming out, not just from Obama, but from the White House itself. Obama already believed his former vice president's path to re-election was going to be a tough road, and he now feels Biden's election day prospects are even more precarious, according to the Washington Post, citing several people familiar with his remarks to Democrats that have reached out to him. So once I saw that headline, I thought this could be sooner rather than later. As a matter of fact, it's one of those news stories that I'm always curious when I watch, when I turn on the TV and see what the breaking news will be. Obama's office, by the way, in full disclosure, did not respond to a request for comment. A Biden campaign spokesperson told the Washington Post that the president is grateful to have his former boss's unwavering support. And Pelosi, another name that we said, if turned on Biden, could be a major concern. Pelosi says it is legitimate to ask if Biden's debate performance was an episode or a condition. Remember the calls for Mitch McConnell to step down? Anyway, Andrea Mitchell from MSNBC said everybody knows there's an age issue. He certainly did the opposite of reassuring people with that high-risk, potentially high-reward debate plan that they came up with. It backfired. And let's dissect that for a moment. I know there's a lot of people that believe that the debate was done so early. Well, you follow one of two camps. One, it was done so early that Biden demanded it so early because he wanted to get that momentum, because his polls were going the opposite way. So he wanted to get that momentum with a win. And trust me, the media was going to do everything they could to give him that win. He just made it impossible for them. That's how bad that was. Because they, even if you recall, many of the media tried to cover for him at first until it became undeniable. Okay. So you either fall in that camp, but they were hoping it would change the momentum and everything would be fine. The other camp believes that people behind the scenes wanted the debate so early so that if he did have a blow up like this, they would have time to replace him. The only problem I have with that thought is 120 some days is not a lot of time. Granted, it's better than September if you're going to replace him. I get that. But things have to be moving pretty quickly here. And I think that's why you're starting to see more Democrats coming out saying, wait a minute, we thought he'd step aside from the campaign over the weekend or on Monday or something like that. But when he didn't do that, that's why you started to see the leak here, or Obama's allies, hey, make sure this gets to the media. I don't know. This is all fascinating. But Pelosi said to Andrea Mitchell's question, you asked me to speak from my experience. My experience with Joe Biden is in all the legislation that we passed to save the country with the rescue package, money in people's pockets, shots in their arm, children in school, people back to work with the child tax credit, the infrastructure bill, rebuilding the infrastructure of America in a universal way where people can participate in those decisions, the CHIPS and Science Act to make us self-sufficient world, the PACT Act to honor our veterans and help those who were affected by burn pits. The list goes on and on. We have all these things that he was masterful in helping to write and to pass. He has a vision. He has knowledge. He has judgment. He has strategic thinking and the rest. He had a bad night. Again, I think it's a legitimate question to say, is this an episode or is this a condition? When people ask that question, it's legitimate of both candidates. So that's the talking point. Nancy Pelosi not wanting to completely throw him under the bus. But at the same time, they have to continue. They have to find a talking point. So they have to say, yeah, there's some issues here in case he does go by the wayside. But they always have to get that dig in at Trump, where they have to say, make sure you question the mental health of Trump. That's an interesting new talking point coming out. Oh, wow, I'm running late. Okay, stay with us. We'll be right back. With Frankly Speaking, I see some comments coming in. Thank you for joining us. As you are aware, we'll not be on the air tomorrow. We'll have a repeat, a really great repeat So I highly recommend that you watch it. But we will not be live tomorrow, but we'll be back on Friday. And if you missed it in the last hour, on Monday's show, we're going to be talking to country legend, newest member of the Grand Ole Opry, T. Graham Brown. He's got a new album out called From Memphis to Muscle Shoals, which will be available on August the 2nd. It sounds like a great album. You're going to learn all about it on Monday. There's a little bit of housekeeping. Stay with us. When we come back, we're going to show Dante Brown from Big Fox News at 10, his piece from Congressman Langworthy's event yesterday, and then we'll get into some more Biden issues and some Trump. So stay right there. We'll be right back. And we are back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox putting together all the comments that we received from viewers, which I will read in just a moment. But I want to get to this before we run out of time. It's just a quick little piece from yesterday's news, if you missed it, Big Fox News at 10. Congressman Nick Langworthy hosted 108 Vietnam veterans for a 50th anniversary Vietnam-era veteran pinning ceremony at Horseheads High School. This event was hosted in partnership with the United States of America Vietnam War Commemoration to honor veterans from Schuyler, Steuben, and Chemung counties for their service and sacrifice. Now, Dante had the opportunity to speak with the congressman and our friend Roy, who will be on the interview as well. But this is what the congressman said before he spoke with Dante. Honoring our Vietnam veterans is long overdue, and it is a privilege to acknowledge the courage and dedication these individuals demonstrated during one of our nation's most challenging periods. Their sacrifices and those of their families have not been forgotten. Today's ceremony is a small token of our immense gratitude. So here is from our friend Dante Brown at Big Fox News at 10.
According to research gathered with the help of the Department of Veteran Affairs, the Southern Tier has 5 counties ranked in the top 10 throughout New York State in veteran residents, with thousands throughout Steuben, Chemung, and Schuyler County. Today, veterans who served in the Vietnam were surrounded by family and friends and honored with pins for their time in service during the Vietnam War. For many, it was a chance to receive an honor that they may not have been able to get first coming home from the service.
It was a great honor. It was really nice ceremony. Really nice. Heartwarming, I guess. Yeah. It was a really thankful thing to do.
Truly the most meaningful thing I've done as a public official, to be able to honor our Vietnam veterans in this official way.
For many of the veterans attending, the celebration gave them a chance to be thankful, but for others, a chance to reflect on loved ones lost during the war.
I have deep sympathy because one of my neighbors that got killed over there when I was in the service, Eddie Hanshaw.
Eddie was close to Roy growing up, playing sports together with Eddie's dad as coach. Roy reflected on losing a close friend during trying times.
A memory that I'll never forget. It really affects you during a wartime when one of your family or one of your neighbors get killed.
As veterans from around the Southern Tier still with us receive their pins, those lost in war are never forgotten. Dante Brown, Big Fox News, Hornet.
All right. Thank you, Dante. I wanted to pass that along to you. Okay, let's get to viewer comments. And that's Dante Brown, one of our MMJ multimedia journalists with Big Fox News at 10. Comments from viewers. Help me understand how anyone can vote for a Democrat knowing that any replacement will forge ahead with the same goal. And it's clear that their plan is to continue to destroy America. Another comment from a viewer. I'm thinking the only way the Bidens will give up the White House is possibly a physical health issue. I'm thinking Joe Biden is fighting going into the nursing home. Another comment from a different viewer. The Dems are masters at getting everyone to look over there while they are hiding something more important elsewhere. The question isn't, will Biden stay or step down? The real question is, who is the person that will tell Biden to push the button at 3 a.m? Well, that's the interesting point. You think about that will he be able to take the phone call at 3 a.m? That was the question about Obama. Would he be ready for it? And that's always been kind of a common question in politics. And yet one of the excuses they're making about Biden is he's great between the hours of 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. I'm not sure who came up with that talking point. Michael Goodwin from the New York Post has a really good piece that I can't get to because we've got to take a short break. But we're going to talk about that. We're also got a few things from the New York Post. Also, here's something. I have 1 minute. I can bring this up. Hunter Biden has been joining with the White House meetings. There's this lack of trust. They don't believe that Biden's advisors have been doing an effective job. I don't know how you blame them. But Hunter Biden has joined meetings with the president and close staff this week. Hunter Biden has joined the president in meetings with top aides, closely advising his father and popping into meetings and phone calls with the president. Does that give you, the American people, the boost of confidence that one of your senior advisors at this point is Hunter Biden? I'm not making light of any kind of addiction issue. I'm saying the pictures we saw on the laptop, what we heard in that trial, is that someone that should be your closest confidant? The White House sources told NBC News that the president's son's sudden presence at meetings has caused confusion for some White House staff, with the reaction being, pardon my language, what the hell is happening? The report noted that while it's not unusual for Hunter Biden to be around the White House for events, his participation in meetings with top aides is not a common occurrence. Fresh off a conviction last month in a federal court in Delaware over gun charges, Hunter Biden remains under indictment for tax-related felonies. Like the cases in Delaware, the president's son has pleaded not guilty to those charges. Mike Howell said it's just pure and simple massive interest in his dad staying president so he can pardon not only Hunter, but Joe and the rest of the family for the crimes they committed, and probably Merrick Garland too for his role in the cover-up. Meanwhile, White House spokesman Andrew Bates downplayed concerns over Hunter Biden's sudden appearance, telling NBC News that the president's son came back with the president from their family weekend at Camp David and went with the president straight into speech prep. All right, there we go. Interesting. Hunter Biden, new top advisor to the president. We got to take a break. Stay with us. This is Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Ooh, a little loud there. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking, broadcasting live from the Hesselson's studio. As I mentioned, there is not a Student Senior Services Fund interview this morning, this week being the holiday. We're taking it easy with interviews because so many people's schedules have changed. But on Monday, we're going to be talking to Grand Ole Opry member, country legend T. Graham Brown. So do not miss that. All right, couple comments from viewers. Actually, quite a few comments from viewers. First one up, the White House is a nursing home. Because someone had mentioned that. The White House nursing home, Biden is now in the best one in the world. Who can deny that? That's a way of putting it. Around-the-clock protection, personal chef, paid for by the taxpayer. What else could you want? But it's interesting. We learned that he was, and this goes to show you how much they've been trying to hide this, that they had been keeping him away, senior staff had been keeping him away from these staff, like the quote-unquote butlers. Next up, from a different viewer. So relieved to hear that Hunter is participating in meetings that impact our country. I will most definitely sleep better knowing this. Exactly. I think there may be some sarcasm there. I'm sure that's not something they wanted reported, that Biden's senior staffer, his aides, can't be trusted, that the only one that can come in there and save the day for his father is Hunter Biden, who has made certain decisions in the past. Never mind. Michael Goodwin saying, get your popcorn and grab a seat. The hottest political show of the moment is one Americans haven't seen for decades. Democrats behaving like Republicans. Suddenly, members of the party with a recent habit of sticking together are engaged in a circular firing squad. I thought that was a good point, because if you even recall on Friday, I had said, well, the difference between if this were Trump and now Biden is that Republicans would have thrown him under the bus on Thursday night. Now you're starting to see a slow delay on this, but I'm still questioning whether or not this leads to anything. I think we're so close to November, and when you got the campaign cash involved. And if you don't know, I had to do some research on this yesterday. The only person that can inherit that campaign cash is Harris. So if there is a replacement, the most likely replacement would be Kamala Harris. And that's why you've probably noticed so many puff pieces, so many sweetheart interviews. But I'll continue with what Michael Goodwin had to say. The insults, name-calling, and nasty exchanges echo the way the GOP has squandered its House majority. The Democrats' civil war involves even bigger stakes, of course, because it was sparked by the presidential debate. It was so bad that lawmakers and donors are growing increasingly bold and publicly demanding that Biden withdraw from the race. In an arrogant response, the campaign blasted the, quote, bedwetting brigade and told complainers to get back in line if they want to beat Trump. Alas, the order to shut up isn't working, as even some of the party's most reliable handmaidens are abandoning ship. CNN's Jake Tapper, usually a full-time Trump basher, accused the White House and Biden campaign of using Orwellian tactics to silence dissent. There's a pattern, a discernible pattern. And Democrats, what they're lying to convince you, the public, to not believe what you saw, what you heard, he said. As the whole world knows, the showdown was dominated by Biden's stunning brain freezes and gibberish. And I'm not going to go through all that. Listen, we've talked about all those. But this again, Michael Goodwin from the New York Post. He said it was a political earthquake, and its aftershocks are reshaping the race. My prediction is the president will follow the path of a politically wounded LBJ in 1968 and drop out within a month. Within a month, though, I mean, you're talking a quick turnaround on getting a campaign going here. Meanwhile, Biden's closet of secrets is spilling out, and the public is finally getting some insights into the extent of his cognitive decline, something they've lied about to you for years. The emerging profiles that he's a part-time president whose work schedule is lighter than that of your average civil servant. The commander-in-chief is only dependably engaged for about 6 hours a day, according to insiders and what they told Axios. And pretty nice work if you can get it. As Axios noted, most of the president's public events are scheduled for those hours between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. Politico separately reports that Biden has become more difficult to deal with in routine matters. And I had mentioned that earlier in the program. Although it's a welcome development that members of the staff are coming clean, Biden's true medical conditions remains a secret. How about China, Russia, and Iran? Do they know the roster of his ailments? Does their knowledge explain their aggression and confidence that America itself is in decline? Then there's the Washington Press Corps. Where has it been? If there's a Pulitzer Prize for the best cover-up of government corruption, the Washington media bigs should share it. Yes. Think about it. And by the way, nothing about that is to be taken lightly about China, Russia, and Iran and what they're thinking right now and what that could lead to. But good point on this. Washington, who, speaks truth to power, or Washington Press, that speaks truth to power, that they're rooting out corruption. They have been not only complicit, they have been really propaganda machines for this White House, knowing what Biden was like and lying to you for this long. They have meekly surrendered to the fact that Biden has done far fewer news conferences and interviews than recent presidents. A little curiosity about why and some digging might have revealed what we're now learning about his condition. But that would have benefited Trump. So the curiosity and shovels stayed in the closet. Yeah, it does not matter to them what this means for our country, that Biden is in this cognitive decline. It did not matter what Russia, China, Iran would see from this president and what they could do and get away with because of this president's mental decline. They did not care, because at the end of the day, it's all about their hatred of Trump and getting Trump out there, getting Trump out of the race, losing the race. The media became a megaphone for White House disinformation. When the ever-hapless press secretary recently declared the videos cheap fakes, many outlets instantly repeated her lie as a fact. That makes the press corps the real lying, dog-faced pony soldiers Biden once strangely referenced. Keeping him hidden was key to preserving the illusion that he is good to go for a second term, according to Carl Bernstein. Although he suffers from a rabid case of Trump derangement syndrome, the former Watergate reporter told CNN that the ugly debate scene was not unique. And he said there's something like 10 to 20 occasions in the last year and a half when the president has appeared somewhat as he did in the horror show as we witnessed. Historic media cover-up of Oval Office secrets, such as the fact that FDR needed crutches and that JFK was a serial seducer, are often explained away as relics of bygone eras. But there's no excuse for this one, which is arguably the most dangerous cover-up of all. Correction, there is one excuse, and that excuse, Trump. The truth could make him president again, so it had to be hidden. Falling public trust in the media has merit, and it's not just falling, it's plummeting. This is the reason, one of the many reasons, why the media is not trusted. Biden himself, in a mark of desperation, revealed another secret Monday, wearing way too much bronze makeup to compensate for what he looked like at the debate. He denounced the Supreme Court's ruling on presidential immunity. His demand, which you read off a teleprompter, could have been aimed at the Washington, D.C. judge handling the case. Chutkan was nominated to the bench when Biden was vice president under Obama and has tilted toward prosecutors in the case so far. Still, Biden's comments are a reminder that he was no bystander in that case or any of the others brought against Trump by Democrat prosecutors. Yeah, they never thought they'd have to get to this point. They thought the lawfare would bring down Trump. Even the delay in the planned sentencing of Trump in the Manhattan show trial raises the chances that case will be overturned on appeal. The significance of these developments cannot be overstated. The Dems claim that Trump is a threat to democracy. That was always a fig leaf to hide that they were the ones playing by banana republic rules. And now the sordid conspiracy appears to be unraveling. Good riddance to it, and hopefully to the president who authorized it. That's Michael Goodwin. We've got a lot more coming up. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. Welcome back to Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV. Big Fox. I'm your host, Frank Aiken, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio here on Marcus Street in Corning. Comments from viewers. Hunter Biden is a criminal. His gun charge is a federal offense. He shouldn't even be allowed in any meeting in the White House with his father. Thank you. Next comment, Frank. The only reason there is now a Democrat circular firing squad is that the Dems have now given everyone permission to distance themselves from the issue to protect their seats. We have to remember that Democrats aren't feckless or stupid. They develop a plan and work the plan. Thank you, Ken. The New York Post editorial board suggests that there's no way to restore the illusion that Biden is fit for the presidency. Yeah, that's the biggest problem, especially now when you have, not the biggest problem, but a problem that Democrats have now, because they know he can't really come back from this. So, and especially now that you have media turning on him, you have many Democrats turning on him, how could he come back from this? So someone has to be working behind the scenes, maybe numerous people, to tell him, look, there's no way you're coming back from that performance. Now, never underestimate the size of Joe Biden's ego. Biden's growing limitations were becoming apparent long before his meltdown in last week's debate. Politico also reports. No kidding. Thank you for finally joining the club. Why were you not reporting on this? And no one has done more to keep the president isolated and shielded from tough conversations than First Lady Jill Biden, who publicly scoffs at concerns over her husband's competency. The president may still be technically in charge, but he's only selectively fed information. He's not running the country. Indeed, the staff has been treating him exactly like the dementia patient they publicly deny he is. And now, recovering addict, retired influence peddler Hunter Biden is sitting in on presidential meetings. Legendary newsman Carl Bernstein reports that people who loved and supported Biden have been pouring out of the woodwork to raise the alarm, claiming there have been 15 to 20 occasions in the last year and a half when the president has appeared somewhat as he did during the debate. The White House can't make this go away by trotting the president out for 4 minutes of reading a teleprompter or going to George Stephanopoulos' show and not going live, remind you, pre-taping an interview. Tuesday also brought 2 House Democrats declaring he needs to go. When the Post and others pointed out these problems, the White House attacked them, calling it cheap fakes. Did the press outlets now breaking the grim news, even the New York Times is getting in on it, know the truth and keep silent, or just miss the obvious? Either way, the lie has finally crumbled, and all the president's spinners and stagecrafters can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Most voters think the Democrats have a better chance of keeping the White House if Biden isn't the nominee, according to CNN. In a matchup between Trump and Biden, Trump is beating Biden by 6 points. There are some signs in the poll that each candidate has consolidated support among their own partisans in recent months. Okay, enough on polls. Now, Julian Zelzer says, before Democrats think about replacing Biden, they should remember 1968. It's always interesting to go back through the history, that the media always wants to bring that up. The willingness to take this step may also be greater given that Democrats feel Trump, a convicted felon and accused insurrectionist, poses an existential threat to democracy that is far greater than Nixon. Even with the negative lessons of what happened after Johnson stepped out, Democrats might be very determined to make this historic decision. But as Democrats move through this crossroad, they would do well to consider the potential limitations of this risky decision. And they always got to get in there. Threat to democracy. Doing the work for the Bidens right up till the end. Now, the most likeliest replacement, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, would be Kamala Harris. If the president ends his reelection bid, his vice president would be the clear front runner to lead the Democrat ticket, despite her own political weaknesses. And there are a lot there. You've seen her speeches, the word salads, which I hate to use that term. I just don't know a better way to describe it. So that's being reported by Washington Post or Wall Street Journal, but so many others. The election wouldn't be decided by one night in June, she told voters in Vegas. In a real leader, character matters more than style. Trump does not have the character to be president. Clyburn, James Clyburn, another major name, who really ultimately helped Joe win the primary back in 2020 that led to his White House time at the White House. He said, Congressman, he was asked, Congressman, how would you feel if there's a decision for him to step down? If he decides that he has to decide that, or if the party pressures him to do that, how would you feel if they worked around and tried to go around Kamala Harris because of her lack of high poll numbers? So the idea is, just to paraphrase it, because Andrea Mitchell getting a little wordy there, what she's saying is, how would you feel? Because we've heard from some of Harris's supporters that they're really outraged and offended that she's not even being considered. Other names are being thrown around. So she's saying, what happens if it's not Kamala Harris? Clyburn said, I will support her if he were to step aside, but I'm going to support her going forward sometime in the future. I want this ticket to continue to be Biden-Harris. Then we will see what happens after the next election. No, this should not in any way do anything to work around Harris. We should do everything we can to bolster her, whether it's in second place or in the top of the ticket. We're going to talk more about Harris in a little bit. I see some other comments coming in. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking here on WYDC TV, Big Fox. Welcome back. Broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. This is Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank Acom. Thank you for joining us. So Kamala Harris would be the only one set to inherit the $240 million in Democrat funds if Biden drops out, because then it gets trickier to be able to transfer it to anyone else. Kamala Harris is poised to take Joe Biden's place if he drops out, in part because she is the only person who can take control of the Democrats' $240 million war chest. Many prominent Democrats are waiting in the wings, as we know. You've had Gavin Newsom and others campaigning for this secretly, essentially, for years. Biden has two real choices: Kamala and Harris, or they transfer all to the DNC. That money would all be accessed by Kamala. Anyone else would be on their own in fundraising. You'd have to really hit the ground running. Even if Biden wanted to, campaign finance sources say giving the money to another candidate like Gavin Newsom or Whitmer would prove sticky. That's because only Biden and Harris are named in the federal paperwork for their campaign, which donors gave money to, which amounts to the lion's share of the money raised. Legal sources note Biden, like every other individual, is still subject to campaign finance laws that cap donations at $3,300 to each candidate. Even the DNC is limited to just a $5,000 contribution to each candidate. So this is where it gets interesting. And some Democrats told the Post it's a tragedy that even if it were Kamala on the ballot, they're stuck with a candidate no one wanted. Wow. This is one source told the Post, quote, the tragedy for the Democrats is they were so focused on identity politics, they picked someone no one wanted who checks a box. Had they focused on performance politics, they would be in a terrific situation. But I don't think she can win. This is where it gets interesting. What do you think? I mean, right now, as we know, I keep checking, but as you know, Biden says he is in it. But Kamala would be the likely choice, and that's why you've probably noticed, and Fox News has been reporting on this, you've noticed that Kamala Harris is sporting better polls all of a sudden. I saw that this morning, I want to say it was on ABC, where it was, she could win. Oh, that's interesting how that poll comes out now, even though she's never historically been that popular. Or you have puff pieces, and she's making more public appearances. Harris suddenly figures to play a defining role in the campaign down the stretch, a turnaround for the vice president that many critics have panned as a potential liability for Democrats in November. Then, it wasn't that long ago, last year probably, where people were calling for her to be replaced on the ticket. The negativity surrounding Harris even garnered calls for the vice president to step away from the campaign. Oh, as recently as March, this says. There you go. I got ahead of myself. Washington Post columnist saying that she needed to step aside for the country's sake. Now, some have speculated Harris could take over at the top of the ticket. The vice president's visibility already started to increase last week. And you probably noticed that subconsciously. I know I did. I was starting to see more clips of her, more interviews, and I said, it didn't even register until you start to see, wait, the writing may be on the wall. Media outlets have taken notice, leading to an avalanche of positive press for the vice president. Harris was called Biden's secret weapon in North Carolina by The Hill. She's one of the administration's best spokespeople to the black community, said Democrat strategist Jamal Simons. The president has been making the case to the black community as well, but obviously the VP has a different kind of appeal. The Los Angeles Times saying that Harris finally found her groove. Oh, that's interesting. Just perfect timing to find your groove. She's become a top fundraiser for Democrats and emissary to groups that are lukewarm towards President Biden, in particular black and younger voters, and emerged as the administration's most forceful voice on abortion, women's health, and as Harris frames it, the threat Trump poses to freedom and individual choice, that piece said. The New York Times declaring Harris's moment has arrived, calling her the perfect messenger for the campaign for issues such as reproductive rights. And you may have seen, so you're going to start seeing more favorable pieces on her, more comments about her. While many prominent Democrats have publicly backed Biden remaining the party's nominee, there have been growing cries for Harris to take over at the top of the ticket. A New York Times opinion column the day after the debate declared that Harris could win the election, while a Vox Media column asked, what about Kamala? Former U.S. Representative Tim Ryan of Ohio became one of the first two nationally prominent Democrats to publicly advocate for Harris. I know it's the end of the program, so I'm rushing and I'm getting tongue-tied. She will destroy Trump in a debate, highlight choice issues, energize our base, bring back young voters, and give us generational change, said Ryan. If you have a moment, go to the New York Post, and Ricky Schlott has a piece talking about Kamala Harris. Desperately youthful pandering is too cringeworthy to be president. And they go through these, it is pandering. One is actually an interview with, I think, an influencer on a podcast, but it was actually paid for. It's basically an ad. They had to admit that it's paid for by the Biden-Harris campaign. And she uses out-of-date slang, out-of-date. And that's one thing, and I'm not even just being rude. I'm not, in no way am I trying to be rude. The one thing about Harris is she is very cringeworthy when she tries to be relatable. This goes back before she was vice president. This goes back all the way to the presidential debates, or the primary debates back in 2020. The awkwardness of some of her, somebody back then compared it to your aunt trying to be cool, trying to be the cool aunt. Even Elon Musk weighed in over these videos, saying the segment was toenail curling level of cringe. That's actually a good way to put it. She spoke to BET, and I don't know what show. Oh, and interrupted the BET Awards with a pre-recorded segment in which she FaceTimed Henson to talk about the upcoming election. I'm not sure who Henson is. The Empire actress sat in a makeup chair and told Madam VP Harris about her concerns for the upcoming election. Let me tell you, you're right. There is so much at stake at this moment. There's a full-on attack on our fundamental freedom, the freedom to vote, the freedom to love who you love, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom for a woman to make decisions about her own body and not having her government tell her what to do. Harris went on to say that the majority of us believe in freedom and equality, but these extremists, as they say, they not like us, which is a reference to Kendrick Lamar's Drake dissing song, Not Like Us. Ugh. That didn't sit well with viewers. BET really got Kamala Harris pandering to the black community, talking about they not like us. Miss Harris, you not like us either, said one Twitter user. Yeah, she tries. And right now you're going to see a lot of glowing reviews about Kamala, because if she's sitting on that $240 million, $250 million war chest, she's likely to be the nominee. So keep that in mind if Biden does step aside. But we got to take our last break of this Wednesday morning edition of Frankly Speaking. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this. And we are back, wrapping things up on this morning's edition of Frankly Speaking. Get those last minute comments in because you won't be able to make them tomorrow. We have a rerun tomorrow as we all celebrate Independence Day. So get your last minute comments in. Judge Mercan has delayed Trump's sentencing until September 18th, if it is even necessary. If it is still necessary. Interesting. Trump raised $331 million in a quarter, topping Biden. And now you've got the concern where donors are starting to back off from Biden until they see what happens. It's kind of interesting. So we reported yesterday that some are saying, well, give him like a 2-week window to see how things turn around. But it's intensifying. These calls for him to resign are intensifying. I don't imagine they help him in the polls. Now, Ivanka Trump will attend the Republican National Convention. She calls Donald Trump's conviction painful. Despite having left politics, Donald Trump's daughter, who said in a new interview with podcaster Lex Fridman that politics is a rough business and pretty dark world. She will watch his speech at the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee later this month. That's nice. What's with just quickly, the media is in full force against RFK Jr. as well. Unsettling photo appears to show RFK Jr. with a barbecued carcass of a dog. I know, not the best conversation to have if you're getting ready for breakfast. Now they're saying, if you look at it, a veterinarian said they believe it's a dog. The independent presidential candidate insists it's not, that it was a goat. Then, damning report reveals RFK Jr.'s history of alleged sexual assault coming from the New Republic. This is all in one day. Vanity Fair. RFK Jr.'s family doesn't want him to run. Even they may not know his darkest secrets. Yeah, I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know where this all came from, at least at this moment. Seems like this would have came out before when they were trying to attack him. There's a really good piece. Man, I'm out of time. James Bovard said, Biden's Supreme Court outburst revealed the falsehoods at the heart of his presidency. Vote for me or the Constitution dies is Biden's latest pitch to revive his faltering re-election campaign. And we don't have time to get to this all, I know. I apologize for that. But he claimed his character is now the only restraint on the White House power, suggesting that Americans are luckier than ever to have him in the Oval Office. One can oppose the Supreme Court's immunity ruling without swallowing Biden's hogwash about being the savior of the Constitution. The U.S. northern border is a massive loophole for Biden's asylum crackdown as crossing hits new record. Joe Biden has a 5,500-mile loophole in his border crackdown. The U.S.-Canada border, the longest in the world, remains wide open for migrants seeking to enter the country illegally and claim asylum because it's not part of the Biden administration's latest restrictions. I meant to mention this earlier. According to a whistleblower, the FBI abuses security clearance to purge conservatives. They view the conservatives as unworthy of employment, according to a new whistleblower. The unnamed agent, who is described as a registered Democrat and is represented by the nonprofit Empower Oversight, further claims that high-ranking officials in the division believe if an FBI employee fits a certain profile as a political conservative, they were viewed as security concerns and unworthy to work at the FBI. We're out of time for today's edition of Frankly Speaking. One last comment from a viewer. Way too much money in a business that's supposed to represent all the people, not just elite special interest donors. They work for we the people. Yes, the money going into Washington, I know. The corruption it leads to so often. Okay, we will not be in tomorrow. I hope that everyone has a fun, safe July 4th. We will be back on Friday, but I hope that you take a moment and thank the good Lord that you're in this country, the greatest country in the world. I know right now we're having a lot of conversations about its future and how divided we are, but we still got to just take a moment and think about how lucky and how blessed we really are. On Monday's show, I will be talking with the great T. Graham Brown, the newest member of the Grand Ole Opry, by the way. He'll be joining us on Monday. I will be back on Friday, though. Friday, it's just going to be you and I catching up, talking about our July 4th barbecues. Have a great day, everyone. We will be back Friday morning, and have a great 4th of July. We'll see you then.